Hey, Johannes from Gear Up Your Life here, and in just a few hours I'm heading to London, so before leaving for the airport, I thought I'd show you my exact personal item setup for long-haul flights. And don't worry, you won't see noise-cancelling headphones for the 100th time in this video. Instead, I'll show you the small gadgets I actually bring with me to survive long flights in economy. In total, this setup is about 12 to 14 small gadgets, all inside my personal item. And stick around until the end, because I'll also show you a few bonus items that might be even more useful depending on how often you fly. So let's start with the bag I always bring on flight. So let's start with the bag that actually holds all of this. For flights, I personally prefer sling bags instead of backpacks, simply because everything stays within reach while you're sitting in your seat. The one I've been using for the last 6 months now is the Niosmart UL2 sling, and it's honestly become my go-to personal item for flights. It's compact enough to easily fit under the seat, but still big enough to hold all the things you actually want during a long flight, and the best thing is the weight of only around 350 grams. So less than a bottle of water, and of course it's built from 1.5 D grid nylon, which is water, dust and stain resistant, what isn't as important for flying but for your daily setup afterwards. What I really like about this sling is how structured it feels for its size. The main compartment has enough depth for the bigger items, while the smaller internal pockets keep cables, adapters and small gadgets from floating around loose. There's also a quick access front pocket, which is perfect for things like your passport, boarding pass or phone. Basically the things you constantly grab while moving through the airport. And the overall build quality is honestly very solid. The materials feel durable, the zippers are smooth and the bag keeps its shape even when it's packed out. One small thing I always add to the sling is this Zelen mini carabiner, because with that I can clip something like my nano bag directly onto the sling, which is super useful for flights, because if I buy snacks, drinks or anything at the airport, I suddenly have extra space without needing another full bag. So with just this setup, the sling, the carabiner and the nano bag, I already have a really flexible personal item system for the entire flight. And yes, this part of the video is once again sponsored by Niosmart, but as you guys know, I've been working with them for well over a year now and have been using their bags on most of my trips. Now let's move on to the first things that actually make long flights way more comfortable. So the first things I usually pack are what I'd call my comfort upgrades, or more specifically, my sleep essentials. Because on longer flights, getting at least some decent sleep is honestly one of the most important things. And the first one, and probably the most important item for me personally, is this sleep mask from Emzu. Compared to those thin airline sleep masks, this one is actually structured, so it doesn't press directly on your eyes. Instead, it creates a small gap around them, which means you can still blink normally without the fabric touching your eyelids the whole time. The foam is soft, the strap is adjustable, and most importantly, it blocks almost all light, which makes a huge difference when the cabin lights suddenly turn on or someone opens their window. Price-wise, it's also very reasonable, usually around $10 to $15, which for something that can easily improve your sleep on flights is honestly a great upgrade. And then the two things that usually go together with the sleep mask are earplugs and a neck pillow. For earplugs, I use the loop earplugs, which I've recommended quite a few times already. They reduce a lot of the background noise from the cabin, things like engines, conversations, or carts rolling through the aisle, without completely blocking everything around you. And finally, depending on the trip, I either bring the TRTL neck pillow or this Chemo travel pillow. Both help support your neck while sleeping upright, which is honestly one of the biggest challenges when trying to sleep in an airplane seat. So together, the sleep mask, earplugs, and a neck pillow, this is basically my small in-flight sleep setup. And once I'm comfortable, the next thing that becomes important on longer flights is usually entertainment. Now once the sleep essentials are covered, the rest is really about making the time where I'm not sleeping a bit easier and more enjoyable. And for entertainment on flights, I honestly keep my setup very simple. The first thing is the AirFly Pro adapter, which I actually upgraded to recently. Before that, I used the standard AirFly. The main difference is that the Pro version can connect to 2 headphones at the same time and also works in both transmit and receive mode, which makes it a bit more flexible depending on how you use it. But the basic idea is very simple. You plug it into the airplane entertainment system and then you can connect your wireless earbuds or headphones via Bluetooth, so you're not stuck using those wired airline headphones anymore. The second part of my entertainment setup is this Moft phone stand. Most of the time I download the movies or shows I really want to watch before the flight, which honestly saves a lot of frustration compared to relying on the airplane system. And having a small stand like this makes a huge difference because you're not holding your phone for 2 hours straight. You can just place it on the tray table and watch comfortably. Another option I also like is the Wicked Chilly flight phone holder, which is specifically designed for airplane seats, but for this flight I'm actually leaving that one at home and just bringing the Moft stand instead. Now once entertainment is sorted, the next thing that becomes important on long flights is usually keeping all your devices charged. Now the next thing on long flights is keeping your devices charged, because the reality is even on long-haul flights, you can't always rely on the airplane to actually have working charging ports. So the one thing that always comes with me is the Anker Nano Mago Powerbank. It's extremely small, completely airplane safe, and because it magnetically attaches to the back of your phone, you can keep using your phone while it charges without dealing with cables everywhere. For something this compact, it honestly solves most charging situations during a flight. Now, if the airplane actually does have power outlets, then I also bring this ESR 3-in-1 foldable charger. It folds completely flat, takes almost no space in the bag, and lets me charge my Apple Watch, AirPods and phone at the same time, which makes it a really nice small travel charging station. And then I also keep two very small things inside my personal item. First, a simple 3-in-1 charging cable, which works with basically every device I carry. And second, this universal travel adapter from Epica that probably everybody has heard of, which means whether I'm charging at the airport during a layover or once I reach my destination, the setup still works everywhere. So from a tech perspective, this is basically my entire charging setup. And honestly, I prefer bringing less instead of more, because with these few items, I'm already completely covered for the whole trip. Now, the next category is something most people underestimate on flights: staying hydrated and feeling a bit more refreshed during the trip. Now, the next category is what I'd call my small refresh setup for flights. And as you guys know, I always like bringing a small clear toiletry bag with me inside my personal item. The one I'm using here is actually the clear pouch from the Tripped toiletry set. And if you're interested in the full set, there's already a complete review of it on my second channel. The reason I like this clear pouch for flights is simple. It keeps everything organized. It's easy to see what's inside, and if you ever go through security or need something quickly in the airplane bathroom, you can grab it immediately. Inside this one, I usually pack a few very basic essentials. First, these gravel silicone travel bottles. One of them usually has shampoo, which I probably won't use on the plane itself, but it's nice to have ready for when you arrive at your destination. And the other one I fill with liquid soap, which is honestly much more useful during travel than most people expect. Then I also keep the very basics in here. Just a toothbrush and some toothpaste. Nothing special, but on longer flights or before landing, it's always nice to quickly freshen up. One small thing I also always bring are these foam soap sheets. They're basically tiny sheets of soap that dissolve when you add water, which makes them perfect for quick hand washing, whether it's in the airplane bathroom, at the airport, or during a layover. And finally, outside of the toiletry bag, I also bring some electrolytes. The ones I use are from a small German brand, but honestly, you can use whatever brand you prefer. Staying hydrated on long flights makes a huge difference, and adding electrolytes to your water is one of the easiest ways to feel a bit better after several hours in the air. Now, speaking of hydration, the next item in my personal item is something I use on almost every flight. And finally, there are two small things I sometimes bring that aren't necessarily 100% essential, but for me they're honestly very nice to have on longer flights. The first one is this Hydropack Flux foldable water bottle. I usually carry it separately. And yes, there are definitely smaller foldable bottles out there, but I personally prefer this 1.5 litre version, simply because it holds a lot more water. And on long flights, hydration is something most people really underestimate. The nice thing about this bottle is that it folds down when it's empty, so it doesn't take up much space in your bag. But once you fill it up after security, you suddenly have enough water for a much longer time instead of relying on those tiny airplane cups. Second small tool I sometimes bring is this USB data blocker from Buisang. If you've ever charged your phone in a public USB port at an airport or during a layover, this is basically a small security layer. It blocks any data transfer, so the port can only deliver power to charge your device. I don't always bring the entire set. Usually I just take the connector that I actually need for the devices I'm carrying, but it's one of those tiny things that takes almost no space and just adds a bit of extra peace of mind while traveling. Now, before you leave, don't go anywhere yet, because there are still a few bonus gadgets I bring on longer trips or under slightly different circumstances that can make flights even easier. Quick side note before we continue. If real travel gear is your thing, I've actually put together something much bigger that's completely free. Inside the newsletter, you'll find 75 plus tested travel essentials, 8 complete packing guides for different travel styles, from carry-on only trips to longer stays, and 25 practical travel tip cards you can use on almost any trip. It's also where I share more behind the scenes insights, real packing setups, and the gear that actually makes it into my bag, together with a community of more than 2,000 travelers who already joined. You can sign up and unlock the entire Gear Vault bundle for free through the first link in the description. Alright, now let's get into the bonus gadget. The first one is merino wool compression socks. I don't always wear them on shorter flights, but once you start flying long haul, 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours, they can make a huge difference. They help improve circulation in your legs and reduce swelling, which is something that happens surprisingly often when you sit for that long. And because these are made from merino wool, they're breathable, temperature regulating, and honestly much more comfortable than the typical compression socks most people think of. The second bonus item is a small travel blanket. This one here is from 4Monster. Airplane blankets can be pretty hit or miss depending on the airline, and sometimes you simply don't get one at all. So, on longer overnight flights or colder cabins, having a small packable blanket like this can make the entire flight a lot more comfortable. It folds down very small. Once you open it up, it's big enough to actually keep you warm. The third bonus gadget is a hero clip style carabiner. This becomes especially useful if you're traveling with a backpack instead of a sling bag, because you can clip your bag to things like the tray table, a seat pocket, or even hang it somewhere while waiting at the airport. It's a small thing, but it keeps your bag off the floor and makes your setup a bit easier to manage in tight spaces. And finally, we have the nomadic travel wallet. I've actually been using this wallet for several years now, and it's honestly one of the most practical travel wallets I've tried. It keeps things like your passport, boarding pass, cards, and some cash all in one place, which makes airport transitions a lot smoother. That being said, I know wallets are one of those things where everyone kind of has their own system already. So if you already have a wallet that works for you, that's perfectly fine. But if you're looking for something more travel focused, this is definitely one I've been happy with for a long time. Alright, and with that, we're done. Now I actually have a flight to catch, so I'll see you in the next video, or maybe already today inside the newsletter. And if you want to watch more videos that YouTube is 100% convinced you're going to love, you can click right here on the left. And if you're not subscribed yet, you can do that right here on the right. And with that, as always, safe travels, guys.